Why is my world not engaging? Why are my adventures always so flat and linear? Why does everything just feel like we're moving from one set piece to another? Here's how you're probably used to running a game. You trudge through the sullen dead grass and gloomy cold fog covered courtyard. Lightning assaults the dead black night before going dark once more, leaving only the rumbling of thunder to shake your already shivering limbs. A warm light creeps out of the entrance and spreads across the courtyard. Far above is a broken round window, glass shards lodged deep in its metal frame. What do you want to do? Maybe the rogue wants to try to climb up the window, or your heroes go the straight and narrow. They take the front door, and so a room description is given. The ornate outer doors of the castle hang open, flanked by fluttering torches and iron sconces. 20 feet inside the castle is a second set of doors. The doors in the front of you suddenly swing open, revealing a grand hall filled with the sound of organ music. Overhead in the vaulted entry foyer, 4 statues of dragons glare down, their eyes flickering in the torchlight. The group goes silent for a minute until someone says either, "We enter the castle," or "I want to inspect the dragons." Either way, initiative is rolled as combat starts, and now a pattern will set in. Clear room, move to the next room, investigate, either enter combat, roleplay, and or discover clues. The room is cleared, and now the loop is complete. Okay. Not the best example. This is an excerpt from Curse of Strahd, and as far as adventures and maps go, it's a stupendously well-crafted mega dungeon. So let's look at a dungeon I've ran before from another D&D classic. Temple of the Howling Hatred. The Temple of the Elemental Evil is an old-school goodie, but as far as pre-written adventures go, it's closest to what a homebrew will look like. So, does this sound familiar? A squat stone gatehouse stands at the entrance to the dwarven city. Beyond the open gates, an arched corridor zigzags past sturdy stone walls where arrow slits squint from every angle. At the far end of this murderous hallway stands the entrance to this lost dwarven city. Players with not much other options walk through the front gate. They hear terrible screams that chill the soul, but they investigate. They discover, or not, that these screams are a trick to keep them away. Roleplay ensues, the room is cleared. Move to the next room, rinse, repeat. The Temple of the Howling Hatred, though, like others, has some branching directions. It repeats its loop again and again. There's just something tiring about this setup, even if it's tried and true and simple. But is there an alternative? Well, yes, there are some tools that will help you out. Let's look into a different situation. The heroes run up the wilderness path. To their left is the wreckage of the flying ship they were in. Ahead is a ruined temple with a locked door. The door has a particularly difficult lock, but your rogue gives it a go. If he succeeds at this DC 20 roll, he's just skipped 3 potential combat encounters, and is in a chamber filled with traps, but with rows of stone sarcophagi, each of which promises the potential for great loot. Perhaps, if he fails, your party of heroes takes a left. In the wreckage, they see enemies, but to someone paying attention, they notice that the cliff to the right is easy enough to climb. Your group is resourceful and or athletic. Now they have 2 options: skip combat to save resources and health, or take on the foes. Let's say they are cautious. They get to the top and notice a natural bridge, and at the end is an abandoned lockbox with gold and some materials and consumables. Score! Now they're standing at level with the roof of the ancient temple, but in the ruins are a group of tomb raiders, not much better than bandits. Maybe the group could talk to them. Maybe they could sneak past and see what's on the path that leads around the east side. But it's also noticed that a large carved stone is being held up just above these 2 potential enemies. You've got options: to skip, to roleplay, or to take your advantage while it's hot. Drop the stone and potentially kill 2 birds with, well, 1 stone. This is an opportunity the party cannot pass up. The cleric is a killjoy and says maybe they're good guys. Let's give them a chance. Tense conversation later, negotiations look like they're about to fail. The party representative standing clear of being squashed like a Looney Tunes character, a hidden party member strikes the rope and snaps it. The stone crashes down, kills one bat, it leaves the other screaming in pain as combat starts and a hole has opened up in the roof. If you've played Baldur's Gate 3, you know I just described the introductory locale for the wilderness of Act 1. Now, none of us are a Larian team with the genius, money, and time to make a massive sprawling map with infinite possibilities, but there are 3 simple rules you can take from that sequence. There's actually a system Larian is using here, and it's not unique to them. It's actually an old one, called Jaquaying a map. Janelle Jaquay is an old hand at dungeon designing, and her work really influenced Baldur's Gate 3. There are 3 important principles she uses, but they can really be boiled down to 1. Paths. Lots of paths. There should be multiple paths, there should be secret paths, and they should loop. To illustrate this, we're going to reference the Goblin Camp in Baldur's Gate 3. There are 3 major paths. You can come in from the front, from the east, and from the north. All 3 of these give you a unique method of tackling this dungeon. Whether you take on the front directly, come in from above, having taken the east side path, or come in from the top west. These options allow your players to make real decisions, and all you have to do is make certain of these other 2 rules. But before we do that, I have to admit something. I lied to you, because there aren't only 3 paths into the Goblin Camp, and this is how you really bring your map into another level. Because in the previous zone, in the Blighted Village's Spider Cave, or even the northern Joaquin's Rest, Zentarum hideout, leading you into the Underdark. And that is how you take it to a new level. With a little bit of bravery and ingenuity, your players could end up taking a direction that few others would even consider. Here are the other 2, because they go hand in hand. Secrets and clues, and rewarding exploration. These both go together, but are distinct enough that it's worth talking about them as 2 parts. Secrets and clues are the types of things you can learn when exploring, whether it's finding a shrine to a god or goddess related to a player or gaining a vantage point to learn more about enemy strengths and plans, to overhear a conversation that gives information, or doing recon. One especially great example of this are burrow holes in Baldur's Gate. You are able to use familiars to enter these areas and scout into dungeons from the outside. Or, if you're able to shapeshift like a druid, even find yet another way to enter points of interest. Now, when I say rewarding exploration, that isn't to say that these secrets and clues don't fill this role in one way, but what I mean here is you're also rewarding your players with valuables that you won't find elsewhere, or meeting NPCs you otherwise wouldn't have learned about, using these as opportunities to create emergent roleplay. It's really these things that bring your world to life. By giving options for ways to tackle a map and its dungeons, as well as rewarding that exploration, you immediately create a world in which the player's decisions are what matters most. This may make most sense to those who might be running their own homebrew worlds, but that doesn't mean you can't implement these in pre-generated adventures. So let's leave you with one more example. You descend into the Desrin Valley. Looming above is Feathergale Spire, its glittering tower sitting upon a plateau overlooking the whole valley. Your heroes may choose to follow the sight of circling birds where they find the remains of a mostly eaten skeleton, 24 gold and a spell scroll and 2 potions of healing. They also see a blood trail that leads towards the river. Following the trail, you find a cave within the dead rocks where a man eats hard rations. His leg busted. He tells the player there is one other survivor, that they were guards of a delegation that got ambushed. His companion left for the Howling Plateau to find a griffin. They're a druid apparently, and they hope, with their connection to nature, they can manage to convince the majestic animal to fly them out. He wouldn't mind some extra food to help him till his companions get back, and maybe the group could find and help them. This path leads them into finding a nice item of the DM's choice. There's also another path towards Knife Point Gully to the left, and the players can just make out dwarven ruins and a waterfall. If they follow this path, they see the gate to the Temple of the Howling Hatred guarded by 3 powerful casters. It's also noticed, however, that the waterfall is leaving from the side of the valley mountain, and the heroes can tell there's something there. Perhaps they could get a ride from a griffin themselves, if they find this druid and get help. Maybe, though, they instead never went this route. They make their way to Feathergale Spire. Path may lead up the side of the valley, giving them access to the bridge that it crosses over to the tower. Perhaps they enter through the ground floor, or make a series of skill checks and good decisions in scaling the side of the tower. Now you have 3 potential ways to enter this tower. Perhaps there they succeed with the use of a Speak with Animals. Players could find a scroll, potion, or magic item if they don't have the spell already, to convince the griffins to help them into the temple. Before they leave, they gather information in cult disguises, choosing to enter appearing as members of the cult. Adding in means for finding extra odds and ends, putting perhaps a small bit of rebel that allows the players to gather information, can go a long way in taking a pre-generated campaign and turning it into a living and breathing world. So, whether you're running a homebrew game or a published adventure, taking just a little time to consider these tools will level up your maps in a way that will encourage your players to be part of the world, and will give them an excitement that will pull them along the adventure in new and exciting ways. And until next time, remember to give your familiar a pet from me.